Ken spoke of in his first message to us. And I don't know if you heard that, but if we're going to move forward in the way that the Lord would have us, there could be some shifts required. So we may need to think about some things differently. And what we talk about right now might be one of those things, because we have some examples of how we could be stronger in some of this in this area. So what I'd like to talk about is how to build trust with your brand. Now that's tough for a lot of people, because brand is something that we have mixed understandings about. Some of those understandings are that its brand is like, hey, look at me, look at me. And for some, that's not even safe. For others, that's not how we think the church should progress and move forward. And then for others, they're saying, right on, we need to do that. And what I wanted to share was a little bit about what Marie even began to say, is that there's a different perspective to think about brand, and that is it gives us a chance to build trust. And I'll share a little bit more about why I think that is important. So let's talk about brand. Our brand has actually been around since 350 AD. Okay, so it's been with us a long time. It's derived from the word brandr, B-R-A-N-D-R, brandr. It's actually a Norse word. It goes all the way back to the Norse language, and it means to burn in, to burn in. And we first saw that showing up in about 350 AD with Norse people. In the 1500s, it was more commonly known to identify ownership over animals. And so we actually would develop this system of burning in their flesh, their skin, their hide, a symbol that would communicate ownership. And those symbols bear all the hallmarks of a good logo. And so some of those people that were making those symbols were probably some of our first designers that were beginning to make these kinds of compact ways of communicating through a symbol. But that's where brand has come from. And today, it's really that emotional, or in America sometimes we say gut feeling, a gut feeling or reaction that a company or an organization can elicit from its customers, its fans, or its ministry audiences. So that's a little bit about brand. In fact, one of the wealthiest men in the world knows a lot about brand. He says it like this. He says, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's not even something that we can own and possess. We can only influence it. Thank you. I told Maharit I'd be able to do both. I'm using my iPad and my computer, and Marie helped me to say I'm failing.
Sorry.
No, this is what Bezo says. So, what's also interesting about Amazon is that over probably half their products aren't even Amazon products. Yet you wouldn't know that, because they do such a good job with creating this feeling, this experience. It's very cohesive, very consistent. But this is more what brand is. If we talk about branding then, in a nutshell, your brand is the set of perceptions people have about your ministry. It is a carefully curated, emotional expression of your value that lives in the people's hearts and in their minds. Branding is a set of actions you take to cultivate your brand. And so we've been doing that. I think of this gentleman way back in the corner there. Justin Stoll has done this beautifully for the last 7 years as he's worked with the United States on developing its way of expressing a brand. And then he's also worked in various parts of the world as well. Latin America is another place, Singapore, a number of other places. And he has been trying to work very carefully so that they can have this curated expression out there on just the conveyors. That's was a big learning for our ministry, and it continues to grow. When done right, this is where I hope we're going to go. Branding becomes a beautiful symphony of design, language, and experience, all combining to cultivate a very specific feeling. That's the goal. And our feeling that we want to produce is that feeling of trust. Because we want to enter people's lives in order to be a spiritual guide. For that to happen, they have to feel safe with us. They have to be able to trust us. They have to feel like they can know us. And so this is the work of branding. We take our brand, that perception we want them to have, and then we do some specific actions so that they would hopefully have those. Now, we can't control whether they have them. We can only do the disciplines in order for them, we hope they can have. Nobody got this better than Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, you might know, was the founder and later, he began as the CEO, was kicked out for a while, and then he came back in. If you've read his autobiography, he was most proud not of creating the Mac, not of creating the iPod, although in both places he shook up those industries, and not in creating the iPhone, although he blended 3 different things in one time when he first announced that 10 years ago. But you know what his claim to fame was? It was Apple. He created a company that was a marketing machine, and it would move people. And that's what he was most proud of. So he says this: the chance to make a memory is the essence of brand marketing. Steve Jobs, more than anything else, understood that the hallmarks of a good brand strategy is cohesiveness, consistency, and clarity. And you see this lived out with that company and how they do things. Now, you may object to some of the ways they do things, but they market product better than anybody in the whole world. They're on the cusp of becoming the first $1 trillion company. Now, I only say that to illustrate. I actually don't care if they make that mark. I'd much rather see our church grow. But he is a good example. And that's what brand can do for you, and that's what Steve did with Apple. You've seen this slide a number of times. Known and moving, that's what we want to do. We want to know our audience, and we'd like to move them to their next best step toward a relationship with Christ, or to become a disciple who disciples. That's our goal. But did you catch that little subtitle right underneath there? Our product service team, I think I first heard this when Matt, whom I think you'll be hearing from later, shared this. But look at that. It says, with others you know and trust. So yes, we want to pull all the stops out and know our audience, and using all the tools that will we have and that you're hearing about, our tech stack, you've heard that. Wes is so good, and Russ is so good at talking about that. Leah, talking about how we use those tools. We want to know our audience. But if they don't know us, there's a problem with that. So I'd like to just try an exercise. I'd like you to pair up. Okay? This is a workshop, by the way. It's not, you're not supposed to just listen to me. Okay, I'd like you to find somebody that you're not as well acquainted with. The more distant you are from them, the better. Okay? So just stand up. You guys probably all need to do that right now. I know that when I traveled to Jordan, and then even more so in the Philippines, man, I was wiped out. Okay, just find one other person, okay? Okay, everybody got somebody? Okay, I want one of those persons in that pair to be my A person. Okay? So select which one's going to be A. The other one will be B. Okay? Okay, all my A's, raise your hand. Okay. All my A's, raise their hand. Okay, these are your instructions. Okay, I want you to ask B about their family, where they're from, what their high was this week, meaning what's something that brought a smile to their life, and then what their low was, what created the greatest disappointment, frustration, anger, something where I was mad. Okay? So I want the A's to do that with the B's right now. Okay? About 15 more seconds. Okay, let me see if I can get your attention back. Okay, now, my B's, raise your hand. Okay. Now, what I'd like is a couple B's to introduce A. Can you do that? What? Wait a minute, come on, B's. Why not? Why can't you do that? Can't you tell me about A's family? Can you tell me about where they're from? Can you tell me about what their high was? Or their low was? Be difficult, right? Okay, everybody have a seat. Stop the hook. So, digitally, if all we use is our tech stack and all we do is try to get to know them, like what time they log on, what page they looked at, what topic was their interest, what did they respond to, what did they click on next, if that's all we did, we would know quite a bit about them. But they wouldn't know much about us. Well, that's not entirely true, because if they were looking at some of our content, we actually are sending some signals to them. But what are those signals? Does the resource they click on here connect with the resource here? Does it sound like the same person, or am I dealing with somebody who's got a multi-personality? So in our digital environments, we've seen a slide, I'm going to show it later too, where a company looked at us and said, and Ken talked about it, and did this breath test, a digital breath test. And in that test, it doesn't look like you're the same person. It doesn't look like you have the same interests. It doesn't look like that you guys are together. It could be good content, but it doesn't look like you're together. But this is what we want to do. We want to know and move with them, with people they can trust. And in order to have, well, that's not helpful, is it? Oh, it's locked. Thank you. So we want to know and move with others you know and trust. I wasn't quite saying it right. But only way we're going to do that is be able to show them something of ourselves. Well, digitally, we don't have the benefit of sitting across the table with them and talking to them that way. So we've got to send other signals other ways. And we need to do that with what we're putting out in terms of the visual look, so that we can look like we're the same person. And we need to do it with the same kind of feeling that we have through our resources and the words that we use, and of course the same content, so that they can get to know us and trust us. So that's where we're going. So I would like you to hear from a guy that I've enjoyed. He wrote a book called Primal Branding. Let me pull this up because it takes a second to load. His name's Patrick Hanlon. He wrote a book called Primal Branding. And he said that there is actually a pattern to the brands that you and I love. There is a code, if you will, that brands that we are drawn to actually follow. And he's taken some time to study what those are, and he's come up with some ideas. So I'd like you to hear just a little bit of a video that you can find on his website. And he'll talk about this, okay?
Our brains take such a beating here. New York City's Times Square is probably the only place in the world where buildings are actually required to just display some form of advertising. And this is the result. Our brains take such a beating here. New York City's Times Square is probably the only place in the world where buildings are actually required to display some form of advertising. And this is the result. Our primal brain is so overwhelmed by the number of images and the billions of pixels flashing at us, it doesn't know if it should tell us to stay or to run and hide. And because our brain doesn't know what to tell us, most of us just stand and stare. Nor can our brain tell us why we actually feel something for some companies and their products and services, but not for others. For that, we need to have a deeper understanding of what it is to be a brand, a system of images that triggers our senses and dig deep into our emotional core. Where some people see confusion, we perceive a pattern, a construct that makes some ideas meaningful, thanks to an ability to engage us emotionally, feel that we can believe in them, and attract others who share our beliefs. For that, we need to step between the images and get a deeper understanding of what we call brand. There's actually a system behind creating social communities. It includes designing a strategic brand narrative that includes these 7 elements. 1, creation story. 2, creed. 3, icons. 4, rituals. 5, lexicon. 6, non-believers. And 7, leader. Those companies that have these elements of primal code are Kelly Khalil of Loverly Keepers of Airedale. We like them.
So there's more to that video. Basically, they illustrate that through several companies that are living this out. But if you caught it, there were 7 things there that he would say make up the code of those brands that you and I love. The first one was the creation story. It's basically this idea that you know something about, like if you are an Apple fan, which some in the room are, some aren't, but you probably know that it started in the garage with 2 guys named Steve. And why would you know that? But you care about it. The creation story means something because you know where it began. You also might know it from a guy who went to Harvard and he started coding and he created a social site. And guess what he created? Facebook. You might know it of 2 young guys that are not young now. They're quite, I think they're not even alive now. But they started making shoes in their mother's washroom. And guess what they created? Adidas. And guess what the brother created? Puma. And we just know these things because brands that are important to us, we know something about them. A creation story begins to tell our people who we are. And that's one of the codes. The other one you'll see is the creeds. Every social media, like quiet times, like logging on, they become rituals. We also have important words, or you could call them sacred words, specialized words created for believers. Like for Apple, it would be iPod or iPhone. Or for Starbucks, it would be iced grande skinny decaf latte. Those all mean something to those that are fans of that community. And we have important words within our mission as well. I've stated some of them, but there are more. There are also non-believers. Non-believers are important because there will always be those who don't believe what you believe. But they provide contrast, and they also help you define who you are and also who you're not. We can think of them as coffee drinkers versus tea drinkers. Think of them Mac versus PC. Different contrasts begin to show you who you are. And then we have the leader. The leader's special. Bill was special. Our current leaders are special. But Bill was special, and Bonnet was special in the way they began to innovate, the way they began to proactively move into the space they did, the way that God seemed to speak to them first through surrendering their lives and making a contract with God, because he was a businessman. That's what he did. Then they adopted the idea of living pure lives. And Ephesians 5:18 became so important to them, to live holy lives. And then, of course, the Great Commission, to live all out, completely, for the telling of the gospel everywhere. So that's what our leader was like. And then our leaders that come after them, all the way down to the local level, imbued many of these same things in our environments, but they're critical for a brand to exist. So these 7 things are important for us to build a brand. And in a workshop sort of way, I'd like you to work on your code. So on your tables, you'll find this. I'd like each one of you to take one. You can open it up. And you'll find these 7 things that we've just talked about. And what I would love it if you would do, and this would begin to be fast, but I want you to begin to sort of kind of engage with it, okay? So I'd like you to spend about 2 minutes per deal, and we'd like to do it together. I'm going to try to move you through it together. And I'd like you to think about, what is your creation story? You know, in the United States, we start with, well, all of us should start on a grassy hill not far from Kamal. Okay? Right where Kamal lives, in that region of the world, is where it really started. On a grassy hill overlooking Galilee, where Jesus said, all authority has been given to me. Go. Okay, that's where our creation story begins. But then we have unique country creation stories. Ours started with Bill, and then it began to grow in other places. I want you to think about your creation story, and then we're going to walk through the other ones, about 2 minutes each. And in between those, I'd love it if 1 or 2 of you spent 30 seconds sharing yours at your table. Okay, and I'm going to try to walk us through that, okay? So, on the back of your card, the first one, do I have time to do that? Good. Okay, so on the back of your creation card is the definition of creation. And in the space there, the white space with the pins that are on the table, I hope you could take a moment and just jot some notes. It could just be an outline, it could be a sentence, it could be just maybe bubbles of ideas that would share, what is your creation story? Take 2 minutes and do that. Yeah, it's your ministry. It's not you personally, it's your ministry. Good question. Just some thoughts that you had about how things began in your country and how it's begun to spread. Okay, do that one. We're only going to take a minute to do that. You'll jump in and share your creation story. Hopefully we'll hear a lot of people talking. Yeah, at your table. 10 seconds. Okay, sorry. You know, I'm missing out on the best part, is hearing these stories. But we want to move on to the next one, which is number 2, which is creed. Okay, this is things you believe. And of course, there would be the standard orthodox things of Christianity, of course, but then there's things unique in your place and in your country also that you believe. So take a minute and a half, instead of 2 minutes, to jot your thoughts about your creeds in your country. Okay, 15 seconds. Okay, again, with somebody at your table, just share a couple thoughts of what they put down on for their creeds. Okay, 1 minute. Fifteen seconds. Okay, sorry to break in. That was fast, right? Okay, we're putting work back in that name of workshop here. Okay, now on to icons. So 2 minutes, just identify some of the visual messages that you've seen through your time in the ministry that scream us. Okay? So where you're at in your country, icons. 1.5 minutes. Okay, was this one a little easier or harder? A little easier? Okay, so the icons are I know we have a lot of them because we have 4,000 websites that are there. But, okay, move on to your rituals. Okay, what are the things that you do over and over and over, and you train your people to do over and over, and the things you say? Spend a minute thinking about that. Okay, 15 seconds. Okay, now to see how super duper you are, because I'm not, you need to talk about two things. Your icons and your rituals in 1 minute. Okay, somebody at your table, talk about your icons, because I buzzed over that. Talk about your icons, talk about your rituals. Okay, let me bring you back. I am missing out on the best part of hearing from each one of you. But now it's important words, okay? What words do you guys use regularly and say that are important to you? Take 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to do that. On the back of your card. Okay, 15 seconds. Okay, now I'd like you you to take a minute and share, and I know somebody at this table is going to say ice grande skinny decaf latte is one of our important words. But anyway, share your important words. Take a minute to do so. Seconds. Okay, here's the fun one. The non-believers. These are the ones that provide us contrast, right? So take a minute and a half and think about those that you are around. And the non-believers don't have to be negative, right? I mean, we love navigators. We love InterVarsity. But do they do the ministry the same way we do? They don't. They don't believe the way we believe we are to execute the mission. That's fine, though. That's okay. But it does give us an idea who we are and who we aren't. And of course, many of you also have non-believers that are not friendly, like navigators. So that's okay too. You've got to put that down because that shapes how you do ministry, right? Minute and a half. Okay, so Rich was asking, how do you want to describe non-believers? You can do them by name, like maybe somebody in this room might put Muslim, but you could do an icon if you want. Okay, 15 seconds. Okay, I love the fact that there's actually sharing going on as you're thinking about it. That's fine, it's a workshop, right? I can hear this table the most. I'm deaf, completely deaf on this side, by the way, so if you come up to me in the conference and talk on this side of me, I won't be answering. Also, when I'm out in big crowds, it's just the noise, it's just a blur. But this group is fun because I got to hear them interacting. But take 30 seconds now because I'm eating up your time. Share at your table what your non-believers are. Okay, lastly is the leader. Now, you could all talk about Bill, but in your countries, you also have some others as well. Thomas Abraham, Bud Higginson. There's so many great brothers and sisters in Christ that have led us and spread the ministry everywhere. I'll give you a minute on this one. Ten seconds. Okay, thank you. So, what we've done, we've just spent a little time doing what could be called, Patrick Hanlon calls it a primal day, right? Digging into who you are. Now, this is just a beginning. There could be a lot more thought to develop these things out. You'd want to do it with maybe some more people that make up your ministry. But I hope you can begin to think about this, because this begins to be your story. And if we had more workshop time, we'd talk about actually creating a brand story, creating a one-liner, so that you can be consistent when you're communicating, and that when people ask, what do you do? You can answer them succinctly. And if they ask a coworker right next to you, what do you do? They'd actually sound the same. That's not true today, is it? That's not true. I remember Travis, I love Travis, who's over in China, and said that if you asked 10 of my staff what they do, you'd get 10 different answers. But that's where we would go with this. We would develop these, who we are, and then we create a narrative, a brand narrative. And that becomes our story. And from that narrative, we would have a one line that we could communicate very succinctly with that person on the airport, in the airplane, or the taxi, or even the ministry audience person that would like to know a little bit more about why we're interested in them. And we would develop that. So a one-liner, also a tagline, but we have to create a tagline as well, so we'd spend some time on that. Well, I want you to take these cards, and hopefully you can just easily put them in your folder, and you can look at them, and then go back and share them with some of your coworkers, your brothers and sisters back in where you're ministering, and begin to think about more how we can do it, because a brand is one thing. Branding is the work that you do. And the brand actually is the perception based on the work that you do. So today, you've seen this slide. This is kind of still how we look. This is how a person might experience us, and it produces somewhat of a feeling about us. Some might say, wow, you're really broad. Others might say, do you go together? Do you even fit? It doesn't look visually like you do. We need to think about that. A good brand strategy, remember, is one that's cohesive, consistent, and it's clear. And that's where we want to go. Building your brand will build trust. And that's what we ultimately want to do. Take out that diagram one more time that is on your sheet that says content strategy. Thank you. On this sheet, you'll see there's a roof kind of over it. And on it, it says consistent voice, posture, and tone, which is really a lot of your brand. And the brand should actually inform the whole process. In fact, brand should inform everything in our ministry. But as we think about our personas, we think about it related to our brand. When we think about developing content, authoring, creating, of course that's got to be our voice, right? And it's got to be our tone. And we want our brand to inform that. And then, how do people actually get it? How we serve it should also be informed by our brand. Do we beat it over their heads? Do we serve it nicely? Do we come in innovatively? Our brand should inform that. All our interactions are informed by our brand, and those interactions are what our ministry audience uses to develop a perception about us. And we hope that it's the brand that we desire. But that comes from carefully curating all that we do, say, and even what we look like, so that we can give them the brand that we want them to have, which is that we can be a trusted guide with them. And as they allow us and give us the privilege to join them on their journeys, they can trust us. They know we're competent, and then they know that we have integrity. And that's what branding's all about.